At 79, Hayley Mills finally tells the truth about Maureen O'Hara. She was Disney's Golden Girl, the charming twin from The Parent Trap who captured hearts worldwide. For over 6 decades, Hayley Mills has been a beloved figure in cinema, but there's one story she's kept mostly private until now. At 79 years old, Hayley Mills is finally opening up about her experiences working with one of Hollywood's most legendary actresses, Maureen O'Hara. What really happened behind the scenes of The Parent Trap? What was it like for a 14-year-old British girl to work alongside the fiery Irish icon? Today we're diving deep into Hayley's revelations, her memories of Maureen, and the lasting impact this Hollywood legend had on her life and career. To understand Gabby Hayes' relationship with Roy Rogers, we first need to meet the real man behind that famous beard, because George Francis Hayes was nothing like the character audiences loved. Born on May 7, 1885 in Stannards, New York, Hayes grew up far from the dusty trails that would become his cinematic home. He was the son of a hotel owner, living a comfortable middle-class life in the northeastern United States. The young George showed a natural flair for performance and storytelling, but his path to Hollywood was anything but direct. Before becoming Gabby, Hayes tried his hand at professional baseball. He dabbled in engineering. Eventually, the allure of the stage drew him to vaudeville, where he and his wife, Olive E. Ireland, formed a successful touring act. Their performances mixed comedy, music, and sketches, and Hayes became known for his animated facial expressions and natural comic timing. But then came the stock market crash of 1929. When it wiped out much of his savings, Hayes made a desperate decision. He'd take a chance on the burgeoning movie industry in California. He was 44 years old. It was a gamble that would change everything. Here's what makes Gabby Hayes so fascinating. Off camera, he was nothing like his character. Hayes was an intelligent, articulate, impeccably groomed gentleman, well-read, polished in manner, always thoughtful in conversation. He was clean-shaven and well-spoken, but Hollywood audiences knew him as the grizzled frontier codger, forever muttering colorful expressions like "dern tootin'," "dadgummit," and "young whippersnapper." That bushy beard, that roughened voice, that unkempt appearance, it was all an act. And it was an act that made him a star. Initially, Hayes played small roles in early westerns, villains, barkeeps, townsfolks. But as the 1930s progressed, he carved out a niche as the quintessential western sidekick. The transformation into Gabby, the cantankerous yet lovable old-timer with a heart of gold, came almost by accident. But once he found that character, Hollywood couldn't get enough. In 1961, at just 14 years old, Hayley Mills took on one of the most challenging roles of her young career, playing identical twins Susan and Sharon in The Parent Trap. The film required impeccable comedic timing, technical skill, and emotional nuance. But perhaps the most intimidating aspect wasn't the dual role itself. It was meeting her on-screen mother, Maureen O'Hara. Maureen O'Hara was already a Hollywood legend. With her striking red hair, piercing eyes, and commanding presence, she had starred in classics like The Quiet Man and How Green Was My Valley. She was known throughout the industry for her strong will and refusal to be intimidated by Hollywood's male-dominated system. Now, decades later, Hayley recalls that first meeting with vivid clarity. "I was terribly shy at that age," Mills admitted. And here was this magnificent woman with her blazing red hair and that unmistakable Irish voice. She filled a room the moment she entered it. For a young British teenager, suddenly working alongside one of Hollywood's most formidable actresses was nothing short of terrifying. Hayley confessed that at first, she found O'Hara's assertiveness daunting. "She was never cruel or unkind," Mills said, "but she expected everyone, no matter how young, to do their best. She didn't believe in half measures. If you were on that set, you were there to work, and to work well." This was a woman who had fought for respect in an industry that often dismissed actresses as merely decorative. O'Hara demanded professionalism, and she expected it from everyone around her, including her 14-year-old co-star. But something remarkable happened as filming progressed. The initial intimidation that young Hayley felt began to transform into something else entirely: admiration. I realized how much she cared about the story we were telling, Mills explained. She wasn't just acting, she was living the part. Watching her was like a masterclass in presence and precision. Every glance, every gesture meant something. Between takes, O'Hara would take time to talk with Hayley, gently offering advice about the craft of acting and the challenges of growing up in the public eye. One piece of advice in particular stayed with Mills for the rest of her life. She said, "You have to know who you are, Hayley, before the world tells you who to be." Mills continued, "I didn't understand it fully at the time, but I've carried that lesson with me ever since." Off-screen, the pair developed a quiet but genuine friendship, though O'Hara was by nature private and reserved when the cameras stopped rolling. She didn't gossip or indulge in Hollywood nonsense, Mills shared. She valued integrity above all. She had this incredible strength, a moral backbone that never wavered. But she also had a marvelous sense of humor. I can still hear her laugh echoing across the set. According to Mills, O'Hara often lightened tense moments during filming, telling stories of her early days in Ireland or her adventures with John Wayne on location in the rugged landscapes of the West. She could make the whole crew laugh, and she had a twinkle in her eye that reminded you she wasn't as stern as people thought. As the years passed and Hayley herself matured in the industry, she came to understand the pressures Maureen O'Hara had faced throughout her career. She had to fight twice as hard for the respect that men received automatically, Mills reflected. People mistook her strength for arrogance, but it was survival. She demanded fairness and dignity, and that was something I came to admire deeply. Mills noted that O'Hara's example taught her how to navigate the entertainment industry with confidence and self-respect, lessons that would prove invaluable as she transitioned from child star to adult actress. She showed me that you can be kind without being weak and firm without being cruel. That balance is something very few people ever master, but O'Hara did. Throughout her own journey, which included moving beyond her Disney image, taking on more mature roles, navigating complex relationships, and eventually being honored with the Disney Legends Award in 2000, Hayley carried O'Hara's wisdom with her. Now, looking back across the decades, Mills speaks of O'Hara with both affection and profound gratitude. "I wish I had told her how much she influenced me when she was still here," Mills said softly. "She shaped not just how I approached acting, but how I approached life, with honesty, courage, and a bit of Irish fire." When O'Hara passed away in 2015 at the age of 95, Mills felt the loss deeply. It was like losing a piece of old Hollywood, the kind of grace and strength that doesn't exist anymore. She was one of a kind. In reflecting on their time together, Mills's tone becomes almost nostalgic. "Whenever I watch The Parent Trap now, I see her face and remember the little things. The way she'd give me a reassuring smile before a difficult scene, or how she'd put her hand on my shoulder and say, 'You've got this, darling.' Those memories," Mills says, "are among the most cherished of her entire career." O'Hara wasn't just a co-star, Hayley concluded. She was a mentor, a protector, and a friend. "Working with her was one of the greatest gifts of my life." After 6 decades of silence on the subject, Hayley Mills has finally shared the truth about Maureen O'Hara. Not a tale of conflict or drama, but a story of respect, admiration, and the profound impact one legendary actress had on a young girl who would herself become a legend. It's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful Hollywood stories aren't about scandal or rivalry, but about the quiet moments of mentorship, kindness, and strength that shape who we become.
pelajaran itu di balik layar. Saya berharap saya telah memberitahu dia betapa